Picture this. It's 1944, and there's a woman sitting in a London office, calmly planning the assassination of the most guarded man in the world. Not with a sniper rifle, not with a suicide mission, but with poisoned chocolate and a network of spies that would make James Bond jealous. Her name? Vera Atkins. And if you've never heard of her, that's exactly how she wanted it. See, while Hollywood loves to tell us stories about male spies and soldiers who won World War II, there's this whole shadow war that happened in the background. A war fought by women who were told they couldn't possibly handle the pressure, the violence, the sheer brutality of espionage. Women who proved everyone wrong in the most spectacular way possible. Today, I'm going to tell you about the woman who actually came close to killing Hitler. Not the guys who planted the famous briefcase bomb in July 1944. We all know about that one. I'm talking about something more sinister, more creative, and honestly, almost successful. But here's the thing that makes this story absolutely insane. When the men in charge found out a woman was behind the plan, they nearly shut the whole thing down. Because apparently, even when you're fighting the Nazis, some people still think women can't handle the job. Let me take you back to 1941. Britain is getting absolutely hammered. The Blitz is turning London into rubble every night. France has fallen, most of Europe is under Nazi control, and Churchill is sitting in his bunker thinking, we need something different. We need spies. We need saboteurs. We need people who can blend in, gather intelligence, and cause chaos behind enemy lines. So they create this organization called the Special Operations Executive, or SO. Churchill's directive was simple and brutal: set Europe ablaze. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The men running so initially thought they'd just recruit men. Makes sense, right? Except there was one massive problem. If you drop a British man into occupied France, he sticks out like a sore thumb. His accent is wrong. His mannerisms are wrong. The way he orders coffee is wrong. The Gestapo would sniff him out in about 5 minutes. But a woman? A woman could be a secretary, a courier, a shop owner, a nurse. Women were invisible in a way that men simply weren't. They could move through checkpoints, carry messages, transport weapons, and nobody gave them a second glance because, well, they were just women. What threat could they possibly pose? Enter Vera Atkins. Born Vera Rosenberg in Romania in 1908, Jewish heritage, educated in France, fluent in multiple languages, and sharp as a knife. She joins SOE and quickly becomes the intelligence officer for the French section. Her job? Recruit women, train them, send them into Nazi-occupied France, and try not to think too hard about the fact that most of them probably won't come back. Atkins wasn't some desk jockey either. She personally interviewed every single woman who volunteered. She looked them in the eye and asked them questions designed to break them, because if they broke in her office, they wouldn't die in a Gestapo torture chamber. Can you kill someone with your bare hands if you have to? If you're caught and tortured, can you stay quiet for 48 hours so your network can escape? Are you prepared to never see your family again? Most people don't know that, so trained women to kill, not just shoot, kill, hand-to-hand combat, silent kills, how to snap a neck, how to use a garrote, how to make a death look like an accident. These weren't secretaries playing spy. These were trained killers being sent into the most dangerous place on earth. And Vera Atkins sent 39 women into France. 39 women who knew there was a good chance they'd be captured, tortured, and executed. 13 of them never came home. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because before we get to the assassination plot, you need to understand just how dangerous this work was. You need to understand what these women faced, because when I tell you that someone planned to kill Hitler, you need to appreciate the sheer guts it took to even try. One of Atkins' agents was a woman named Noor Inayat Khan, Indian Princess Sufi, Muslim, pacifist, and one of the first female radio operators sent into France. She was so gentle, she couldn't even kill a mouse in her training. But she volunteered anyway. She lasted 3 months before the Gestapo caught her. They tortured her for information. She gave them nothing. They sent her to Dachau concentration camp and executed her. Her last word was liberté. That's who we're talking about. That's the caliber of person Vera Atkins recruited. Now, let me tell you about the chocolate, ... So, chocolate. Sounds innocent enough, right? Wrong. In 1943, British intelligence gets wind of something interesting. Hitler has a massive sweet tooth. The guy loves cake, loves pastries, and especially loves chocolate. But here's the kicker. He's also paranoid as hell. Everything he eats gets tasted by someone else first. Every single thing, Except there might be a loophole. See, Hitler received gifts constantly, from admirers, from allies, from foreign dignitaries, expensive chocolates, fine wines, all sorts of luxury items. And while most of it got checked, there was this one type of gift that sometimes slipped through: personal gifts from high-ranking Nazi officials. Vera Atkins and her team at SO had an idea. What if they could get poisoned chocolate to Hitler, disguised as a gift from someone he trusted? Now, you might be thinking, just poison some chocolate. How hard can that be? Turns out, incredibly hard, because you can't just dump arsenic into a truffle and call it a day. It has to be undetectable. The chocolate has to look, smell, and taste completely normal, and the poison has to be strong enough to kill one of the most protected men in history, but subtle enough that it doesn't trigger any alarms with his food tasters. Enter the scientists at SOE's secret laboratory in Section X. These guys were basically Q from the James Bond movies, except real. They invented explosive rats, poisoned pens, suicide pills disguised as buttons, and all sorts of nightmare fuel. For the Hitler chocolate, they developed a super-thin explosive coating. The chocolate would look completely normal on the outside. You could bite into it, and it would taste fine. But inside, there was a tiny explosive charge, powerful enough to kill. The idea was that Hitler would bite into it, and boom. But there was a backup plan too, because SO didn't half-assed anything. They also created chocolate with a delight action poison, something that would absorb slowly, wouldn't show symptoms right away, and would be completely undetectable in an autopsy. The kind of poison that would make it look like Hitler died of natural causes days later. Pretty genius, right? Now here's where Vera Atkins comes back into the picture. Because creating the chocolate was one thing, getting it to Hitler was something else entirely. Atkins had been building a network of female agents in France for years. These women had infiltrated households, businesses, even German military installations. One of her agents, and I can't give you her real name because her identity was classified until the 2000s, had managed to get close to the household staff of a high-ranking Nazi official who regularly sent gifts to Hitler. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. The chocolate would be given to this Nazi official as a gift. He'd think it was just fancy Belgian chocolate. He'd package it up with his own gifts to send to the Fuhrer. And nobody would suspect a thing because why would a loyal Nazi try to kill Hitler? Atkins spent months setting this up, coordinating messages through coded radio transmissions, arranging drop zones for supplies, making sure her agent had the perfect cover story. Every detail had to be perfect because one slip-up meant not just the mission failing, but her agent being tortured to death. But then something crazy happened. The men in charge got cold feet. When the full details of the operation reached the upper levels of British intelligence, several officials were horrified that a woman was running such a critical mission. Never mind that Atkins had successfully placed dozens of agents. Never mind that she knew the network inside and out. Never mind that she'd been planning this for months. Some commander whose name I won't mention because he doesn't deserve to be remembered, actually wrote in a memo that he didn't believe a woman had the tactical mindset to pull off an assassination, that maybe she should hand over the operation to a male officer who could better assess the military implications. Are you kidding me? While Vera Atkins was sending women into Nazi-occupied territory to risk torture and death, some guy in a comfortable London office was questioning whether she could handle the paperwork. Atkins fought back hard. She had Churchill's ear through her superiors, and she made it clear this was her operation, her network, her plan. If they wanted Hitler dead, she was the one who could make it happen. Eventually, they backed down. The operation got the green light. The poisoned chocolate was prepared, sealed in an authentic Belgian chocolate box, given to Atkins' agent through a dead drop in Paris. The agent made contact with the Nazi household staff member. Everything was going according to plan. And then, just as the chocolate was about to be sent to Hitler's headquarters, the Gestapo arrested someone completely unrelated. A different resistance cell got busted in a nearby town. The Nazis went on high alert. Security around Hitler got even tighter. Random inspections increased, gift deliveries got delayed. The window of opportunity slammed shut. But Vera Atkins wasn't the type to give up. See, while the chocolate plot was on ice, she had other operations running simultaneously. Because that's the thing about Atkins that made her so dangerous. She wasn't running one mission. She was running dozens. At any given time, she had agents gathering intelligence, sabotaging railways, organizing resistance groups, and yes, planning other ways to take out high-value targets. One of her most successful agents was a woman named Nancy Wake. The Gestapo called her the White Mouse because she kept slipping through their traps. By the end of the war, Nancy was the Allies' most decorated servicewoman, and she once killed a German sentry with her bare hands during a raid. When asked about it years later, she said, "In my opinion, the only good German soldier was a dead one, so I killed him. It was either him or me." That was the kind of person Atkins recruited, not because she was bloodthirsty, but because she understood something the men in charge didn't. Women could be just as ruthless as men when it mattered, maybe more so because nobody expected it. But let's get back to Hitler, because the chocolate plot wasn't Atkins' only attempt on his life. In early 1944, she got intelligence that Hitler would be traveling by train to inspect troops on the Eastern Front. Train routes were predictable, trains were vulnerable, and so had gotten very good at blowing up trains. Atkins started planning Operation Foxley. Not the official Operation Foxley, that was a different plan by a different section. This was her version. Her idea was to place a female agent as a cleaner or staff member on Hitler's personal train. The agent would plant explosives in his private car, timed to detonate while the train was crossing a bridge over a deep ravine. The beauty of this plan was its simplicity. Female cleaning staff were everywhere in Germany, even on military trains. They were invisible. An agent with the right forged papers could get access, plant the bomb, and walk away before anyone knew what happened. Atkins found the perfect person for the job, a German-speaking agent who'd already completed 2 successful missions in France, a woman who could pass as a native German, someone who'd proven she could keep her cool under pressure. They trained her specifically for this mission: how to plant explosives on a moving train, how to time the detonator, how to ensure maximum damage. They even built a mock-up of Hitler's train car so she could practice. But here's where history gets murky, and this is important. To this day, we don't know if this mission actually happened. SOE destroyed most of their records after the war. Some say it was to protect agents who were still alive. Some say it was to cover up operations that violated the Geneva Convention. Either way, huge chunks of what Atkins and her agents did are just gone from the historical record. What we do know is that in 1944, there was an explosion on a train line Hitler was supposed to use. The official Nazi report said it was sabotaged by unknown partisans. Hitler's schedule got changed at the last minute. And he took a different route. Whether that was Atkins' operation or pure coincidence, nobody knows for sure. But here's what I think is the most fascinating part of Vera Atkins' story. It's not whether she succeeded in killing Hitler, it's what happened after the war. When Germany surrendered in May 1945, Atkins did something extraordinary. She made a list of every agent she'd sent into France, all 39 women. She knew 13 hadn't come back, and she decided she was going to find out what happened to every single one of them. Her bosses told her to let it go. The war was over. The women were gone. Move on. But Atkins didn't move on. She couldn't, because she'd looked these women in the eye. She'd sent them to their deaths, and she owed them the truth. So she put on a uniform. She wasn't officially military, but she wore it anyway. And she went to Germany. She interrogated Nazi war criminals. She tracked down Gestapo officers. She visited concentration camps. She dug through records. She found witnesses. And slowly, piece by piece, she reconstructed what had happened to her missing agents. Nur Inayat Khan, shot at Dachau, but not before being beaten so badly her skull was fractured. Violette Chabot, executed at Ravensbrück concentration camp. Denise Bloch, same place. All of them had been tortured. None of them had talked. Atkins made sure every single one of them was recognized. She testified at war crimes trials. She pushed for medals and honors. Because of her, these women became heroes instead of forgotten footnotes. And here's the thing, while she was doing all this, tracking down what happened to her agents, she was also piecing together evidence of her own operations, including the ones targeting Hitler. But she kept quiet about most of it. For decades, why did Vera Atkins stay quiet about her operations for so long? That's the million-dollar question. Part of it was the Official Secrets Act. She'd signed it, and she took it seriously. But I think there's more to it than that. I think Atkins understood something profound about power and recognition. She knew that if she started talking about assassinating Hitler, about sending women on suicide missions, about making poisoned chocolate and bombing trains, The story would stop being about the women who died and start being about her. And she didn't want that. She wanted people to remember Nurenyakin's courage, Nancy Wake's ferocity, Violet Chabot's loyalty, not Vera Atkins' cleverness. But here's what's wild. Even though she stayed quiet, bits and pieces of her story started leaking out anyway. In the 1950s, a French historian found references to the chocolate plot in captured German documents. The Nazis had apparently known something was being planned, they just didn't know what. There were memos about increased security around Hitler's food supplies, instructions to double-check all gifts, but no specific mention of chocolate. Then, in the 1970s, some SOE files got declassified. Not the ones about Atkins' operations. Those stayed locked up, but files about Section X, the gadget department. And buried in there were specifications for confectionery-based delivery systems for lethal compounds, poison chocolate. They'd actually done it. In the 1980s, a researcher found a letter Atkins had written to Churchill's office in 1943. It was heavily redacted, but the visible parts talked about novel approaches to removing high-value targets and utilizing assets with unique access. The researcher concluded Atkins had been pitching assassination plots directly to the Prime Minister's office. And Churchill, apparently, had been all for it. There's this quote from him, maybe apocryphal, but it sounds like him. "If a woman can get close enough to Hitler to kill him, I say give her the bloody poison and get out of her way." By the 1990s, Atkins was in her 80s, and journalists started tracking her down for interviews. She'd given them before, but always about her agents, never about herself. But something changed. Maybe she figured she was old enough that the Official Secrets Act didn't matter anymore. Maybe she wanted the full story told before she died. She started talking, not everything. She'd still stop mid-sentence sometimes and say, "That part's still classified." But she confirmed the chocolate plot. She talked about other assassination attempts. She described the network of female agents who'd infiltrated Nazi circles. And she said something in one interview that stuck with me. The interviewer asked her, "Do you think you would have succeeded in killing Hitler if circumstances had been different?" Atkins smiled this thin, cold smile and said, "I think Hitler was a very lucky man to have died when he did, because if the war had gone on another few months, one of my girls would have gotten him." Notice she didn't say, "I would have gotten him." She said, "one of my girls." Even then, even talking about her own operations, she was deflecting credit to her agents. But here's the really fascinating part. After Atkins started talking, other people started coming forward too. Former SO agents who'd worked in other sections, French resistance fighters who'd heard rumors, German officers who'd been involved in security, and a picture emerged of just how close some of these plots came to working. The chocolate, it got into Nazi hands. We know that for sure now. Whether it reached Hitler's inner circle, we don't know. But it got somewhere, because German documents from 1944 mentioned discovering suspicious confections in a package destined for headquarters. They tested them, found nothing, because So had designed them to be undetectable unless you knew exactly what to look for. The train operation, there were actually 3 different attempts on Hitler's trains in 1944. We know about the famous July 20th bomb plot, but there were others, smaller, quieter, and at least one of them might have been Atkins' work. There's this incident in March 1944 where Hitler's train stopped suddenly in the middle of nowhere. The official explanation was a track problem, but some reports say guards found evidence of recently placed explosives that hadn't detonated. The area was searched. They found tools, timing devices, but no saboteurs. Whoever planted it had gotten away. Atkins never confirmed or denied that one. She'd just get this look in her eye like she knew something you didn't. She died in 2000 at 92 years old. Never married, no children. Her whole life was the service. When they went through her papers after she died, they found files. Personal files she'd kept despite orders to destroy everything. Lists of agents, mission reports, letters, and photographs. Dozens of photographs of the women she'd sent into France, young women, smiling. On the back of each photograph, in Atkins' handwriting, was a name, a date, and a single sentence about what happened to them. Noor Nia Khan, September 13, 1944, betrayed, tortured, executed, gave nothing away. Violet Chabot, February 5, 1945, captured after firefight, executed Ravensbrück. 3 guards couldn't make her scream. Odette Sansom survived. Convinced the Gestapo she was Churchill's niece. Pure nerve. Reading through those notes is heartbreaking. But it also tells you everything about Vera Atkins, she remembered. She carried these women with her for the rest of her life. Now, I want to circle back to the question we started with. Why didn't anyone believe a female spy could plan Hitler's assassination? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Even after the war, even after all these women had proven themselves, the narrative got changed. Books about World War II espionage focused on male agents. Movies featured suave British men seducing secretaries and cracking safes. The women became footnotes, romantic interests, supporting characters. SOE sent 470 agents into France. 39 of them were women. That's less than 10%. But those 39 women had some of the highest success rates of any agents. They lasted longer behind enemy lines. They built more extensive networks, they gathered more intelligence, and they were harder to catch because nobody suspected them. The Gestapo had entire departments dedicated to hunting British spies. But their profiles were all wrong. They were looking for military-trained men, weapons experts, commandos, not housewives, not secretaries, not women who could kill you with a hat pin and then serve you tea like nothing happened. Vera Atkins exploited that blind spot brilliantly. She didn't just recruit women to spite the obstacles. She recruited them because of the obstacles. Because sexism was the perfect cover. And the Hitler assassination plots, those weren't desperate long shots, those were carefully planned operations that came terrifyingly close to working. The only reason we don't talk about them more is because Hitler killed himself first. We never got to see if the poisoned chocolate would have worked. We never got to find out if the train bomb would have detonated. But I think about this sometimes. What if one of those plots had succeeded? What if Hitler had died in 1943 or 1944 from what looked like natural causes or an accident? How would that have changed the war? How would history remember it? And more importantly, would anyone have believed a woman was responsible? Probably not, because even now, 80 years later, most people don't know Vera Atkins' name. They don't know about the 39 women she sent into France. They don't know about the poisoned chocolate or the train bombs or the dozen other plots she was running simultaneously. They know about the July 20th bomb plot because it was dramatic. A briefcase bomb in Hitler's headquarters. A massive conspiracy of German officers. It failed spectacularly, and everyone involved was executed in horrible ways. That's the kind of story people remember. But a woman calmly sitting in an office in London, coordinating agents across Europe, developing poisons, arranging dead drops, and coming within a hair's breadth of killing the most protected man on Earth. That story didn't fit the narrative people wanted to hear about World War II. Here's what I think is Vera Atkins' real legacy, though. It's not whether she killed Hitler. It's that she proved women could do this work. Not as well as men. Better than men, in many cases. And she did it at a time when women couldn't even vote in some countries. When they were expected to stay home and support the war effort by knitting socks and rationing butter, she took that expectation and weaponized it. She turned invisibility into an advantage. She built a network of female agents who changed the course of the war in ways we're still discovering. And she did it while fighting two wars, one against Nazi Germany and one against the men in her own organization who didn't think women belonged in combat. So yeah, they couldn't believe a female spy planned Hitler's assassination. But Vera Atkins didn't need them to believe. She just needed them to get out of her way. Today, there's a memorial in England honoring the SO agents who died in service. The names of all 13 women are carved into stone. Noor Inayat Khan, Violet Chabot, Denise Bloch, and 10 others. Vera Atkins fought to get that memorial built. She fought to get them recognized. Her name isn't on it. She didn't want it there. But everyone who knows the story knows the truth. Those women didn't die in vain because Vera Atkins made sure of it. The woman who tried to kill Hitler with chocolate spent the rest of her life making sure the world remembered the women who actually paid the price. And that, more than any assassination plot, is why her story matters. Because heroes don't always look like we expect them to. Sometimes they look like a quiet woman in an office, sending agents to their deaths and spending the rest of her life making sure those deaths meant something. They couldn't believe a female spy planned Hitler's assassination, but she did, and she almost pulled it off.